Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint by Sing Shong. Chapter 282. Demon King of Salvation. Part 4. The exclusive skill Fourth Wall is shaking violently. I didn't mean to do this in the beginning. The start was shortly after the battle with Surya. The day he gained a giant story and protected the demon world with his companions. 3 Ways to Survive in a Ruined World, 3rd Revision. .txt. I received the 3rd revision of Ways of Survival. When he opened his eyes, Yu Jongyuk thought, it is the 4th regression. At first, I read it with a light heart. I was looking forward to it. The current 3rd turn was more perfect than any of the turns that Yu Jongyuk experienced. In the 25th scenario, I became a demon king and got a giant story. Maybe in this revision, the ending I wanted would be recorded. By the way, I thought it was going well. That's what that person said. Everyone was fine until the outer god appeared. Why? 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 Yu Jongyuk was different from the 1st and 2nd revisions. He lost his reason, was hasty, and didn't make plans. Yu Jongyuk was seriously broken by something that happened in the 3rd round. On that day, everything in the 3rd round was over. I read this part and realized what was wrong. I looked at the black fog coming over the walls and bit my lips. The 4th wall wriggled in my head and spewed out sentences. Kim Dokja thought, it might fail. I couldn't survive if I died this time. Now I didn't have my resurrection attribute. Once I was swallowed up by the outer god, I would be entirely wiped out. However, if I could stop him, I can't beat him no matter how I look through Ways of Survival. Han Suyang had told me that the Earth scenarios faithfully followed the original trajectory. If we passed this crisis safely, we could aim for areas of the original novel and head for the desired ending. Below the clock tower, my colleagues were looking up at me. No, there is one way. The failed method in the original. I just had to do it well. They have to live. They might not like it, but they have to live. I couldn't let anyone die. Only then will everyone be able to reach the ending. The night sky split apart and I saw a giant eye looking down at the ground. The transcendence sank down while coughing up blood. Kyrios was already told the story in advance and shouted, quickly, you stupid disciple. I nodded and descended from the clock tower. I couldn't waste the time that Chiok Junyang and the masters had earned. I can't let you go. Don't go alone again. Please. Aak. I don't like this. Dr. Hyung. It is you who said we couldn't do this alone. You were the one who gathered us. You told me all of this. I heard the cries of the party members and told them the necessary stories. Really? I really only told them what they needed. Please live. My head tickled as horns emerged from it. My back was sore from the wings. I could hear the screams of Young Hee-won and cries of Lee Hyun-sung. The children reached out for me. Yu Sanga, who heard the story from me in advance, couldn't take her eyes off me while crying. Yu Sanga would do things well. The moment I pushed off from the ground, my panoramic view changed. The grieving voices of the party members drifted away. Maybe I wanted to tell them something. I want to see the ending with you. There was a sound as I pierced through the atmosphere and the fog let out a pained scream. The constellation God of Wine and Ecstasy has dropped his glass. The constellation Queen of the Darkest Spring is letting out a deep sigh. The constellation Prisoner of the Golden Headband wishes you good luck. Some constellations were worried about me. The constellation Commander of the Red Cosmos dislikes you. Some constellations are denouncing your actions. Some constellations criticized me. No one sponsored me any coins. Perhaps even the constellations knew. This wasn't a story for coins. Wiping his cheeks, Kim Dokja looked at the vast universe. The center of the fog. I could see the small scar made by Chiak Jungyang, the breaking the sky sword saint and Kyrios. I activated electrification and threw myself towards the scar. It was a method I would have never attempted if it was the original novel. However, now there was no other way. The outer gods didn't share their language with unqualified beings. The white pure star energy rose in my right hand while I raised unbroken faith. Demonic energy moved through the blood vessels in my body and the black aura overlaid with the blue-white energy. A powerful shock wave burst from the center of the fog as the magic power in my right hand exploded. A very small gap opened for a moment and I didn't hesitate. I entered the dark fog and the outer god was revealed. Like white blood cells that caught infecting bacteria, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of millions, countless particles looked at me at the same time. It was as if they were eyes. Indescribable distance, the nameless mist. It was the name of the disaster that drifted in the star stream. I opened my mouth towards that being. The great outer god. Strictly speaking, this mist wasn't the original form of the outer god. It was a terrible prototype. However, this alter ego contained enormous power. Please. Please leave. The particles pulsed at my words. Of course, I didn't expect words to work. The fog particles gathered around me started to eat at me. The giant storied demon world spring is protecting your incarnation body. The fourth wall is protecting your spirit. The influence of the fourth wall kept me from falling in front of this vast existence. However, it was impossible to stop the giant story from being damaged little by little. The fog was talking in an unknown language. Perhaps I couldn't hear it properly even if it was interpreted. The indescribable distance was closer to an unconscious thing. It was a hungry predator that only used its instincts to follow the story. My presence grew thinner in the choking fog. Damn son of a bitch. Even Uriel descending couldn't stop this guy. It was the same for the current, the great sage, the equal of heaven, and the abyssal black flame dragon. It might be possible if all three came, but that wouldn't happen. There is only one thing that can help Kim Dokja now. An existence that didn't appear in ways of survival. There was only one thing that could possibly help me against this fog. The starlight could be dimly seen between the fog particles. I came all this way just to give him the right voice. Secretive Plotter. The voice that was released with all its might penetrated the fog and crossed the interstellar space. The fog wriggled and roared as something shone from across the distant galaxy. I once again shouted, "I will make an outer world covenant with you." Yu Jonghyuk was unhappy every time he made an outer world covenant. It was because he couldn't afford it or had to fulfill a ridiculous contract. But this was the only way. This was the first and last way for me to live. The fog didn't start eating. It didn't stop eating me, or the 73rd demon realm. I got a bad feeling as I saw the stories being broken. Could Secretive Plotter stop this guy? Time and space creaked and everything started slowing down. The overwhelming power was controlling all the time and space in the area. The fog cried out and the life activities of everything around me suddenly stopped. Like living creatures frozen in a glacier, they were trapped in that time forever. The next moment, I stood in an unknown galaxy. I looked down at my feet and saw the scene of the star stream. It was outside the star stream, the furthest place of the nebulae of stars. The numerous stars were shining beautifully at my feet. It is a boring sight. Unlike other outer gods, this voice was very sharp and clear. A shadow with a man's shape was wavering. I waited for you, the one pursuing the final chapter. A whiteness could be seen as I looked into that gaping mouth. I just listened to him, but my body was shaking. An endless unknown darkness. The evil that stood in the center of the darkness was staring at me. I wasn't trembling just because of the ominous status of Secretive Plotter. No, perhaps I should say that you are pursuing eternity. I stared at him and was silent for a moment. How did you know? His words had two meanings for me. Eternity. Final chapter. Two opposing meanings were implied in one word. It was like the messages I heard when I got a giant story. You have obtained the qualification of eternity. You have obtained the qualification of final chapter. Oddly, my end had two meanings. When the constellations, including the mass production maker, asked me about the filtering, I replied with final chapter because it was easier to persuade the constellations. I never told anyone that my had two meanings. Once you live for many years, the things that aren't said are heard louder. The exclusive skill, fourth wall, is shaking ominously. The fourth wall is protecting you by bulking up. The fourth wall is baring its teeth towards the secretive plotter. Fragment of the last wall, don't worry. I don't intend to hurt you. Unknown laughter emerged from the shadow's mouth. Secretive plotter. Along with the great sage, the equal of heaven, the abyssal black flame dragon, and Uriel, he was a constellation who had been watching me the longest. An existence I hadn't read about in Ways of Survival. I took a deep breath. I practiced my meeting with him several times, but I didn't know it would be like this. Nice to meet you, Secretive Plotter. I didn't know him. However, that didn't mean I couldn't make any guesses. The crawling chaos in the depths of the scenario. Chapter 283. Demon King of Salvation. Part 5. The crawling chaos. One of the outer gods that was closest to the origin of the universe and favorable to humans, this was according to mythology. In fact, there was no mention of him in Ways of Survival. The crawling chaos, did the last wall call me that? It's just my guess. It is literature left by the recorders of fear. Believing in records that aren't even 100 years old, you are more naive than I thought. The unknown can't be revealed in human language. I bit my lips. There wasn't much known about the outer gods in the myths that were the prototypes for Ways of Survival. In the 74th turn of Ways of Survival, one of the recorders of fear left the following remark: everything we wrote was a lie. It was the only lie we could use to explain the unknown horrors. I was a bit daunted as I asked, are the myths on Earth wrong? I am Secretive Plotter. That is enough. It was an ambiguous answer, but also a sufficient one. I didn't know if he was the crawling chaos or not. At the very least, it was clear that Secretive Plotter was undoubtedly a strong outer god. I have a request. You want to ask me to stop that? That's right. The Secretive Plotter looked down as the mass of fog swallowed a planet. The time of the world was slowed down by the power of Secretive Plotter, but it wasn't completely halted. The Secretive Plotter kept looking down as he spoke. The fog is a disaster originating from the beginning. It is impossible to eliminate it completely. I know that there are ways. The Secretive Plotter just looked down at the universe while disregarding my words. I waited nervously for what he would say next. The shimmering shadow made a disturbing sound. I didn't think it would feel like this when I heard the indirect messages on the channel. I thought he was a good constellation with lots of playfulness and friendliness. The shadow currently in front of me only gave off a cold and frightening sensation. I didn't know what happened, but the appearance of the 73rd demon realm suddenly seemed close. It was as if I was looking through a telescope of enormous magnification as I saw the people of the industrial complex. Kim Dokja. Young Heewan's voice seemed like an auditory hallucination. I saw the party members screaming in despair. Why are you trying to save them? You can see the ending even if you live alone. The ending is only meaningful if they are there. As I spoke, I stimulated dozens of questions and answers in my head. Both my hands were sweating. I couldn't fail here. No matter what, I had to convince the Secretive Plotter in this conversation. What if they don't want it? I slowly opened my mouth. Damn it, Kim Dokja. Stop. Please. Come back. I don't want this. I don't want to survive this way. I'll do anything. If you die, I'll die. If you are going to sit still, I'll sit still. Please don't do this. Please. The voices of my party members were heard using Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint. They didn't say it, but I heard the words. What if the ending they wanted was to die with you there? Do you still want to save them? I barely managed to open my mouth. Yes. It isn't salvation. It is a curse. I couldn't come up with an excuse. It was my story that answered on my behalf. The story Demon King of Salvation is continuing. The Secretive Plotter watched the story coming from me and kept asking. Using those who should have died, changing the world line, hurting everyone and reaching the ending you desire, what is the meaning? The empty eyes of the shadow were shining. An eerie chill went down my spine. No matter what you do or what story you make, you can't truly reach them. The indirect messages didn't reveal the essence of the constellations. Just as I couldn't fully understand the characters from reading the books. Maybe it was a mistake to see the Secretive Plotter. However, it was too late to back down. I opened my mouth after a moment. I heard that once in my childhood. Still, there is still the wall left behind. They were words that Jang Heung once said. Even if there is an insurmountable wall between me and then, even if it isn't heard by the person beyond the wall, I can write something on the wall and at the very least, the wall will change. I wasn't able to say a proper goodbye to Jang Heung. Perhaps he was in the ward like Yoo Jong-hyuk. Maybe after a very long time, somebody might look at the wall. There were no words from Secretive Plotter for a while. Every sentence had a different meaning to the interpreter. To the Secretive Plotter who lived for a very long time, my words might sound completely different. Even so, these were the only words I could squeeze out with my 28 years of wisdom. I just hoped that these words would move something in the Secretive Plotter. I don't agree with your method, but I'm curious. Finally, the Secretive Plotter opened his mouth. Let's say you reach the end of everything using your method and save the world. Then what about the other worlds? Huh? Other worlds? The moment I was about to speak, the universe at my feet flipped over like a card. The cards that were divided into dozens and hundreds of pieces were shining in their own way with different colors and shapes. It was a dimension more distant than the star stream. A world that was blurry but clearly existed. It contained the world of ways of survival that I had read. There was Yoo Jong-hyuk, who died in the theater dungeon in the 8th round. There was the Yoo Jong-hyuk, who went to the Breaking the Sky Sword Saint in the 18th round. There was the 41st round Yoo Jong-hyuk, who made the choice to sacrifice his colleagues. There was the 181st round Yoo Jong-hyuk, who stood up from despair. The stories of the Yoo Jong-hyuk who once saved me were on display in front of me. In addition, I knew the ending of all the regressions. What about all the worlds you didn't save? It was an unthinkable question. No, it was a question I didn't want to think about. In order to stop that story, I changed Yoo Jong-hyuk's third turn. All the events of the original ways of survival and all the worlds that protected me in my childhood. Were they going to be non-existent now? The Secretive Plotter looked at me like it was interesting. I will fulfill your request. Suddenly, the screen on the floor changed to the 73rd Demon Realm. I didn't understand this whim, but Secretive Plotter decided to accept the deal with me. However, there is a condition. I had expected it. All Outer World covenants were subject to severe conditions. Anything is fine, unless it requires me to be subordinate to you or my death. The mouth of the Secretive Plotter opened and revealed something white. It was as if the conditions I mentioned were ridiculous. Sometimes you might have to risk your life. It is all up to you. Okay. However, please save my party members first, before speaking the terms. As I said before, I can't eliminate the fog. Then, I can only save the mortals in the industrial complex. Is that okay? I paused for a moment before nodding. I thought I knew what the Secretive Plotter was going to do. Can you move them to a safe place? Where do you want to move them? Earth. If possible, I would prefer Seoul. It is a closed scenario area, but there is hope. There was a sound and one of his long fingers was cut off. The small finger of the shadow rose in the air, turning into tens of thousands of points that flew into the universe. The points crossed the galaxy in an instant and dug into the 73rd demon realm. The screen under my feet showed the people of the industrial complex. The people were being transported somewhere with a new scenario. The population of the industrial complex was close to 100,000. Now the Secretive Plotter would send out personal scenarios to all the incarnations. A great amount of probability was exhausted, but Secretive Plotter replaced the probability with the sacrifice of one finger. The people who received the scenario were hiding in the demon world. Indescribable distance was released from the bondage of time and started to belatedly devour the planet, but it was already empty. The fog missed the party members and cried out. Now it's my turn. Speak. You must kill someone. Can I ask who I have to kill? My heart was heavy. Maybe there would be special constraints. Or it might be a tangle of probability that not even the Secretive Plotter could touch. Accept the covenant and you will know. What happens if I refuse? In the end, I saw the group of people who had been moved to Earth by the Secretive Plotter. I still have 9 fingers left. I accept. In any case, the worst situation was escaped. The party members safely returned to Earth and everything was as planned. A new sub-scenario has been acquired. The Starstream scenario system has encountered an error. The information of this scenario is being reconstructed. You have acquired the possibility of a new story. A story that can't be understood by the Starstream is germinating. I was the only one left. If I did this well, everything would end smoothly. The Secretive Plotter lifted his right hand, the darkness of the universe distorted and a small portal started to open. Actually, there was another person beside you who made a covenant. Besides me? I looked through my memories of the original novel, but couldn't come up with a person who would make an outer world covenant at this time. What happened to them? I'm expecting much bigger things from you. If you safely complete the scenario, you'll be able to come back without any problems. The portal increased to a size I could go through. Another outer god will transfer you. Be careful not to disobey him. At the end, I was sucked into the portal. The foundations were built up and the whole world spread out like a postmodern oil painting where the intention couldn't be read. The brilliant colors caused me to feel nauseated, and once I lifted my head again, there was a huge door in front of me. Facing me was a giant bubble that filled the endless universe, and a circular door occupied the center. The moment the door opened its big eyes at me, the fourth wall was triggered. The fourth wall is issuing a warning. There was only one such gigantic door in Ways of Survival. An existence by the plotter. I nodded. The door looked down at me with its own will. Fragment of the last wall, and it was a stuffy voice that sounded like it was coming from water. Servant journée ing to end of life. Where am I going? Everything is right and exist at the SAMETIME. Well, I never thought a normal conversation would work. It was usually the case with an outer god. Only the Secretive Plotter was an exceptional case. The past and present art different from the futur. On ly free will is le foot. The door opened with a huge sound. A door that linked the past, present and future. If I stepped in there, I wouldn't be able to go back. Before that, there was something I had to do. I hesitated before placing my hand into my clothes. I pulled out a warm and tiny cotton ball. But Bayu was crying as she shouted at me. Chapter 284. Demon King of Salvation. Part 6. But. No. But. Go back. The world inside the open door couldn't be seen properly. After all, it was clearly a dangerous place. Take care of the people. Perhaps this moment had been scheduled from the moment I found traces of indescribable distrance from Surya's train fragments. Perhaps I would receive little help from Ways of Survival in the place where I was going now. Still, I had to go. If I endured it well this one time, I could return to the party members. With them, I could reach the end of all the scenarios. I slowly moved my feet and Bayu screamed. Bot. Bat it. At. I stepped through the boundaries of the door and Bayou's voice suddenly faded away. I looked towards Bayou's fuzzy face and spoke words that couldn't be conveyed. I'll come back. The Outer World Covenant is activated. You have been deported from the Starstream. Your modifier will disappear from the Starstream. Even after Kim Dokja disappeared into the portal, Secretive Plotter stared at the portal for a long time. An elderly man with 2 abnormally large lumps stood beside the Secretive Plotter. Great Plotter. He is already gone? He just left. Too bad. I wanted to see what type of person he was. Well, you must like him a lot. You sacrificed 3 fingers for him. 3 fingers on Secretive Plotter's left hand had disappeared. It was the price of the probability. No matter your identity, it would have been a burden to borrow the Viceroy's dimensional gate. Why didn't you ask us? It is a fraudulent transaction that the probability of the Weni people can't handle. The elderly man clicked his tongue. I can't understand it at all. No matter the story, I wouldn't do something like this. You can't understand it. In the shadow of Secretive Plotter, white eyes flashed in the air. The elderly man followed the gaze. It was as if he discovered something in the air. That troublesome person, did you intentionally send him? There will be no harmful effect anyway. The old man laughed. Well, it doesn't matter. If only I can deal 1 blow to that damn Starstream. But is there a chance? If he succeeds, he will be closer to the result than anyone else. Than anyone else? It is funny you are saying that when you have already seen the result. The old man grumbled. Whether he succeeds or fail, it will be a loss for you anyway. Secretive Plotter shook his head and replied, it isn't me who will judge it. The 4th wall is shaking violently. As my consciousness flickered, a chill went down my spine. The Outer World Covenant is protecting your existence. I felt like I was going somewhere as I had a few dreams. It was a dream about the party members. Dokja SSI is always looking at the smartphone. What is Dokja SSI's number? We can't call him anyway, so what is the point? Just let me know. I'll send him a game invitation later. A game invitation. I really hoped I would get it in the future. Dokja SSI seems to laugh more often after the fall. By the way, Ajusi is a bit unlucky when he smiles. Isn't it worth changing his mouth shape? I wish Dokja SSI could have been my senior. The second hand of a clock was ticking somewhere. I never hated Dokja SSI like I do today. Come back. The beginning and end of the unknown story were pushing me. I relied on my memories like a small raft moving through a vicious current. In the endless void of the universe, only my memories were floating. Maybe this was how Bayou Xing of the 41st round felt. Not longer afterwards, a message was heard. The Viceroy's dimensional door is closed. The Starstream has noticed your presence. By the time I came to my senses, I was crouched on the floor and vomiting. I felt the touch of the hard ground and slowly opened my eyes. You have entered the new scenario area. The Dakibis of the Bureau have doubts about your existence. The stiffened joints of my incarnation body screamed. I used hit a pressure point to restore my body as quickly as possible. I didn't know where this was, but I had to be nervous from now on. Secretive Plotter himself wasn't in the original novel, so ways of survival couldn't help me with the things that happened here. Kook. The places eaten by the indescribable distance were painful, but I somehow recovered with a great return pill. My horns and wings disappeared because the Demon King transformation was over. It is impossible to use Demon King transformation at the present time. I didn't forget to thoroughly check the equipment and place the necessary items in a position where I could use them immediately. The first thing I checked was the personal scenario window. You can't launch the sub-scenario window. The information for this scenario hasn't been updated yet. The scenario update wasn't applied yet. I looked around at the wreckage of the broken buildings. The collapsed high-rise buildings and the debris of the logos between them. The characters that made up the logo were familiar. There was Hangul and also English. The languages of second-grade tribes were also found. I stopped for a moment and read them. Slowly, an uncomfortable feeling rose from the tip of my feet. Where was this place? The star stream has recognized your modifier. Your position in the night sky will be refreshed. The Bureau is wary of your presence. You have been assigned a hidden scenario. Hidden scenario world adaptation has been acquired. You have acquired a new story. Don't tell me? I started running through the streets. An unrecognizable ruined city. Even so, I was able to recognize this place. It was strange if I couldn't recognize it. It was because my nightmares originated from this city. The status of Sun Sin that only had the legs remaining and the destroyed absolute throne. The carcasses of beasts scattered everywhere and the remnants of giant tentacles gave off a terrible stench. Soul? Nevertheless, there was no time to think. I heard the sound of an explosion and hid among the ruins in my area. A loud shout was heard. People were fleeing from something. No, looking closer, it wasn't people. They were constellations and incarnation bodies. The considerable number of constellations were shouting in their true voices. Run away. Damn it. Their words didn't finish. The feet of an elephant descended from the air and the incarnation bodies burst like worms. I watched the scene breathlessly. The elephant's feet contained an irresistible status and dragged the dead incarnation bodies somewhere. Crazy, what the hell was this? After the elephant disappeared, I carefully escaped through the ruins and headed cautiously towards the bodies. There were a few items to collect on the floor. I looked at the items and controlled my mind. Stay calm. No matter how dangerous this place was, there was a chance of winning if I obtained information. If this was still a scenario area, ways of survival was still valid. The attribute effect has improved your memories of the pages already read. What type of scenario was this? The incarnation bodies of the constellations were present and the fragments of the outer god were scattered. The 95th main scenario is in progress. The Outer World Covenant has replaced your lacking probability. You aren't a formal participant of the scenario. The star stream doubts your eligibility. Their hairs on my arm stood up. How many? The item Arondite has been acquired. I stared blankly down at the item I had collected. A constellation star relic was rolling around on the streets. I skipped a few years? I wondered how the party members were doing. The exclusive skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, has been activated. Yong Hee-won. Lee Hyun-sung. Shin Yu-sung. The exclusive skill, Omniscient Reader's Viewpoint, is cancelled. You can't connect with the current target. The character can't be found. I tried to calm my trembling heart. I needed to be calm. Nothing was certain yet. I took deep breaths to control my mind and expressed the power of a constellation. I planned to explore the surroundings through a channel, if there was one nearby. At this moment, a sound was heard in the area. It was the sound of a powerful strike along with the constellation screams. The moment I reflexively tried to hide between the buildings, I could see a black coat fluttering. For a brief second, I felt my heart stop. Scarred muscles could be seen through the torn sleeves of the coat. I looked at the trajectory of the sword against the ground and emotions filled my heart. He was alive, although he wasn't exactly the same as what I remembered. His physique was a bit bigger, his impression was a bit sharper, and there was a large scar on his cheek. There was no way I couldn't know him. You. I opened my mouth, but something faster than sound flew at me. I would have died instantly if I hadn't invoked Bookmark and Way of the Wind. Even though I dodged, there was a big stab wound in my side. I covered the wound and looked at him with a confused expression. By the time I looked up, he was already in front of my eyes. I was suffocated as he gripped my neck. My voice didn't come out, so I had to use my true voice. Hey! You Jong-hyuk, it's me. Maybe too much time had passed. It took me longer than I thought, so he might have forgotten about me. Let me go. It's me. You already forgot. A terrible pain hit my belly, and I felt like I was going to fall unconscious. I thought it was a terrible joke. Or perhaps he was so angry that he was acting like this. Then Yu Jong-hyuk's cold voice was heard. Where is Arondite? Do you have it? At this moment, a cool sensation grazed my neck. The moment I first met Yu Jong-hyuk on Dongo Bridge came to mind. He had similar eyes. It was the eyes of a person who didn't know me. I will kill you if you don't answer within 5 seconds. Oh. Really, it was the eyes of a person who could kill me. The exclusive skill, character list, is activated. There is too much information about this person. Character list is converted to character summary list. A system error has occurred. 4. The information of the character can't be summarized. The information of the character can't be summarized. Along with a terrible headache, a terrible amount of information started flowing in. 3. I groaned and changed the setting of character list. The minimum number of items specified by the user is shown. I saw the information rising before my eyes and was upset. I thought I knew all the endings of Ways of Survival. Plus. Character list summary. Name, Yu Jong-hyuk. Constellation support? Private attribute, regressor, 1863rd round, myth, ruler of amusement, legend, Iron Blood Supreme King, legend, Demon King Slayer, myth, eternal solitude, quasi-myth, horror of the stars, myth. Exclusive skills, Sage's Eyes LV, hand-to-hand combat LV, thoughts vaccine LV. 100 Steps Godly Fists LV, Red Phoenix Shuanpa LV, Breaking the Sky Swordsmanship LV. Omitted. Stigma, Regression LV, Transmission LV. Asterisk the skill level of this person can't be converted to a numerical value. Asterisk the stigma level of this person can't be converted to a numerical value. Plus. However, there was only one. There was one regression where I didn't know the end. A man who lost all his colleagues and finally saw the final chapter of the story in front of him. 2. The monster whose emotions were worn out by countless betrayals and numerous regressions were watching me. Along with the pain that pierced deep into my chest, the words left by Secretive Plotter revolved in my ears. Let's say you reach the end of everything using your method and save the world. Then what about the other worlds? What about all the worlds you didn't save? In the sky of the ruined Guangwoman, the dying stars were shining. This wasn't the third round of the star stream that I changed. I changed the future, and the worlds of the original novel were abandoned. Yu Jong-hyuk's blade moved through the air. It looks like you aren't going to answer. Then die. It was the 1863rd regression of Ways of Survival. This world was the last round of Yu Jong-hyuk that I knew about.